Alright, let's dive into something that's been making headlines recently, a drone strike on a beach in southern Russia. But before we get into the details, let me just say, this story is a perfect example of how modern warfare is blurring lines in ways that are both fascinating and deeply troubling. Personally, I think what makes this really interesting is the sheer unpredictability of it all. A beach, a place where people go to relax, to escape, becomes a target. Or does it? That's the question everyone's asking. So, here's what we know. A drone crashed into a busy beach near the village of Arkhipo-Osipovka on the Black Sea, killing 7 people, including 3 children, and injuring 40. The footage is chilling. You see this drone hurtling toward the cliffside, then a fireball erupts on the beach. What many people don't realize is that this area is a popular tourist spot for Russians, especially since international travel has been restricted due to sanctions. It's like hitting a nerve center of normalcy, and that's what makes it so unsettling. Now, Russia is blaming Ukraine, calling it a deliberate strike on civilians. Ukraine hasn't commented, but let's be real, both sides have been accusing each other of targeting civilians since the war began. What this really suggests is that the conflict is escalating in ways that are harder to control. Long-range strikes, drones, electronic warfare, these aren't just military tactics anymore, they are tools that can reach into everyday life. And that's a terrifying thought. Here's where it gets even more complicated. Some Ukrainian Telegram channels claim the drone crashed due to electronic warfare jamming its signal. Eyewitnesses also reported hearing gunfire before the explosion, which could mean Russian air defenses tried to shoot it down. If you take a step back and think about it, this raises a deeper question. Was this a failed military operation, or was the beach the intended target? The ambiguity here is part of the strategy, in my opinion. It creates uncertainty, fear, and distrust, all tools in the psychological warfare playbook. What's also striking is the human cost. One eyewitness said their child had a nervous breakdown after witnessing the explosion. This isn't just about geopolitics, it's about families, about kids who should be building sandcastles, not trauma. And let's not forget the broader context. Ukraine has been increasingly successful with long-range strikes, hitting energy infrastructure and warehouses inside Russia. But these strikes aren't without controversy. Civilian deaths have occurred, and that's something neither side can ignore. Meanwhile, Russia has been targeting residential areas in Ukraine since the start of the invasion, killing thousands. Just recently, a strike in Kiev killed 9 people, and a family of 10 was wiped out in Kryvyi Rih. So, when we talk about this beach incident, we have to place it in that larger pattern of violence. It's not an isolated event, it's part of a cycle of retaliation and escalation. Now, let's talk about the Wildberries warehouses. Ukraine has been targeting these depots, claiming they supply the Russian military. Moscow denies it, but Wildberries did sell military-related goods until recently. Personally, I think this is a smart strategy by Ukraine, hit the logistics, disrupt the supply chain. But it also shows how the lines between civilian and military targets are getting blurrier. A warehouse might seem like a legitimate target, but what if it's also storing civilian goods? What if it employs locals? These are the moral dilemmas of modern warfare. If you ask me, the most fascinating detail here is how both sides are leveraging technology and information. Drones, electronic warfare, social media footage, these aren't just tools of war, they are tools of narrative. Each side uses them to shape public perception, to justify their actions. And that's where we, as observers, have to be critical. We can't just take these narratives at face value. We have to ask, who benefits from this story? What's being left out? So, here's my closing thought. This beach strike isn't just about 7 lives lost. It's about the fragility of safety in a world where conflict can reach you anywhere. It's about the moral gray areas we're forced to navigate. And it's about the question we all need to ask, where do we draw the line? Because if a beach isn't off limits, what is? Let me know what you think in the comments. How do you see this incident fitting into the bigger picture? Is there a line that shouldn't be crossed, or is that line already gone?